Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome to I Care About You, the podcast where we talk about healing, self-love, our personal journeys, and moving forward in life with compassion. I'm your host, Juliana J., and today we're diving deep into something we all face at one point. Why healing feels so hard and sometimes impossible. So today we're going to break it down. We'll explore 6 major roadblocks to healing, the hidden ways we self-sabotage, the importance of self-compassion, and even the societal and emotional factors that make it feel impossible to move forward. And of course, I'll be sharing real, actionable steps to help you shift into a place of growth, acceptance, and self-love. You've probably heard the phrase, time heals all wounds, or just get over it. But let's be real, if healing were that easy, we wouldn't be struggling so much. Healing is messy, it's unpredictable, it's deeply personal, and yet so many of us feel stuck, wondering why we can't just get over it and move forward. So grab your journal and some tea, and let's settle in because it's about to get real with what's blocking your healing. I chose to do this podcast because I myself struggle with this, and I feel like I've been doing years of work on myself, and something will happen that will spark the memory of something I thought I overcame, and it comes rushing back to me. And so do those old patterns of self-doubt and all of that other kind of closing up from the world and thinking that what I do isn't good enough for anyone. I want to first address the missing piece in healing, which is self-compassion. Let's start with self-compassion because without it, healing would be impossible. We are often our own worst critics. We say things to ourselves we would never say to someone we love. When we make a mistake or struggle, we feel like we're not healing fast enough, and our inner voice can sound like, why am I always feeling this way? What's wrong with me? I should be over this by now. I'm so weak for letting it affect me. I'm not smart enough to get over this. There must be something wrong with me. Because imagine if a close friend was struggling, would you say these things to them? Of course not. You would offer comfort, understanding, and kindness. And I mentioned this in the last podcast, in that it's important to treat yourself as you would a very dear friend or loved one, with the same kindness and compassion, and approach the things you're going through in a way that you would approach others who are having similar problems. Here's a healing tip. Start treating yourself like you're your best friend. Catch that negative self-talk moments and reframe them into spaces of kindness. When you feel yourself saying stuff like, I should be over this by now, reframe it to, I'm healing in my own time, and that's okay. Instead of thinking things like, I'm failing at this, I'm a loser, I'm not smart enough, start reframing that into, I'm learning and growing, and that is enough right now. Or whatever you would say to a good friend who's really struggling with something. And I'm not talking about giving yourself toxic positivity like we do so often to people that we love, just because we want them to feel better about something right away. And so we will say things like, you're not over that already, or that's not a big deal, or you just need to move on. And we can say those things to ourselves as long as we're making sure we come with compassion. When we say you should just move on to ourselves, we can ask the question, and how would I do that? What steps would I take to be able to let this go? I think that's something we so often never do. We never ask ourselves those questions. And that's where journaling can really come in. You can outline a problem that you're having, and then you can ask yourself, what can I do to move through this issue? What are some options? And make a list, and then go back through the list and decide, well, I can't really move to another country right now, so maybe that's not an option, but maybe I can circle back to the person I'm having a disagreement with and have a hard conversation. And if so, how would I have that hard conversation, and what would I say? And perhaps you role play it. This is just a small shift to reframe your thoughts when they come up and to start being proactive about what change means for you. But it rewires your brain over time when you do things like that, creating new neural pathways, which I've talked about on many of the podcasts, that will help you naturally be kinder to yourself in the future, to choose a new way of interacting with yourself, new self-dialogue that isn't deprecating or negative. And that's really important, just those small steps. If that's all you do for a while is work on reframing your negative self-talk, that is enough, my friend. That is enough. You'll heal in your own time. There's no standard time frame for healing from things. And sometimes we might spend our lifetime healing from something. That's okay if that's what it takes. As long as we're mindful about it, we're working on it. We're trying to shift our feelings about it. It may impact us less and less and less over time. And we may be able to let go of some of the identity that's tied into something, especially if you went through something traumatic. When I was in my abusive relationship, when I got out of that, I clung to that definition of being a victim for a long time. And that bled into every part of my life. Not just a victim in that relationship, but I'm a victim at work, and I'm a victim at the store when I get overcharged, and I'm a victim if somebody cuts me off in traffic. And it just became this persona that I had that I really had to let go of. I had to let go of all the things I had used to define myself that were intertwined in that old relationship that weren't serving me, and move on. That's kind of another thing that holds us back. Self-sabotage. Healing isn't just about getting better. It's about recognizing what we do to stop ourselves from healing. That's where self-sabotage comes in. Self-sabotage is when we subconsciously block our own progress. We're talking on a subconscious level. You're not actively doing it to yourself, so you might not even recognize that you're doing it because healing feels scary and unfamiliar and undeserved. Often, self-sabotaging can look like procrastinating on therapy or journaling or self-care or any other kind of therapeutic modalities that might help you, or in reading that self-help book or doing those types of things and then really putting in the work. You procrastinate. Avoiding deep emotional work and staying busy to avoid your feelings. If you really want to get over something and heal, do that deep emotional work. You have to let it in. You have to address it. You can't just stay busy and avoid your feelings altogether about it. Now, I'm not saying you have to do this deep work in therapy where you go all the way back to your childhood and work on that. If that works for you, that's fabulous. Some people don't do that. Some people will do other types of therapy where they're addressing it just right here and now. But if you can't tap into your emotions, you're going to have relationship issues throughout your life, and they will keep returning until you do that deep emotional work. So this actually helps you on many levels. Another thing you do to self-sabotage is pushing away support, because deep down you don't believe you deserve the help. And you push it away because you don't want to be a burden to people. You feel like you don't deserve their help, and you can't accept it. It's like accepting a gift. A lot of us have a hard time accepting when somebody gives us and being thankful and telling them so. The same as with support or any kind of help like that. We've been conditioned in society to think that's a weakness and we don't deserve it. And so we push it away instead of embracing it and letting somebody possibly hold us for a while and help us for a while and walk with us for a while. That is a big portion of my book, Reasons to Live. The whole second half is about how to support others through trauma and dark times. So you might want to pick that book up if you think it would be helpful. And the last thing we do to self-sabotage is going back to toxic relationships and old habits that don't serve us. We cling to that because even though it's not good for us, it's what we know. So there's a comfort zone factor to it. We know how to be in a toxic relationship. We know how to be in things that are unhealthy for us. We know what these old habits are, like negative self-talk, procrastination, pushing people away, retracting within ourselves when something happens. It's good to retract into yourself now and again, but for the right reasons. If you have mechanisms that aren't serving you recognizing those comfort zones like toxic relationships and old habits, even if they aren't serving you, you know how they work. So you tend to gravitate there. Or relationships where someone doesn't treat you like an equal, someone doesn't respect you, someone doesn't treat you with kindness, someone doesn't actively show love, someone's emotionally shut down. You keep going to those same people because that's familiar to you, and you have to break that mold. You have to break that and realize it's not serving you anymore and retrain your brain, like we talked about, to look for something different. Why do we self sabotage? As I said, fear of change. Even if pain is uncomfortable, it's familiar. Healing means stepping into the unknown. If you're going to truly heal, you have to step into a place that you've never been before. And you might feel ill equipped because you don't know anything about how to work through your healing journey. And you have a lot of fear around that, especially if you have a lot of fear around what other people will think or being judged and all kinds of other factors that come into play about what other people might think. If you work on healing yourself, because sometimes healing ourselves means we can no longer be in that box we've been in for most of our lives or a portion of our lives. And we're going to have to shift over to what we really want to be, which isn't a box. It's just an open space, an open field. And we have a lot of fear about how will the people that expect us to be in the box react when we're no longer that person anymore. And that stops us dead in our tracks. Another thing is feeling that we're not worthy. Deep down, we believe we don't deserve happiness. We don't deserve to get over it. And so subconsciously, we block all of our healing. This is really, really common. I think the majority of folks out there struggle with believing they're not worthy. Even hugely successful people who seem to have it all have feelings of unworthiness. When we're unworthy, we feel like we don't deserve the things we have. We don't deserve to be healthy. We don't deserve to work through this. We just stay stuck there. Another thing that keeps us from working on our own change, that is a part of self-sabotage, is the fear of disappointment. If we believe we might fail in healing, we sometimes avoid trying to do it at all. Or we feel like we will be a disappointment to some folks if we heal. If you're in a crowd where everyone is doing this thing that you want to heal from, you then think, if I heal from this, this means I have to leave all of these people and they're all going to be disappointed in me because I'm not staying in that space. That happens a lot in addiction and other kinds of places where people have contorted themselves to fit in this group. And then when they want to leave the group, people will use manipulation and fear to keep you in the space. So here's one tip about all of that. Start small. Healing doesn't have to be overwhelming. Every tiny step builds the momentum. For example, when I was dealing with a loss of a loved one very close to me, the small steps were getting out of bed, going to bed at a decent time, taking care of myself, like showering, sleeping, eating, trying to balance some happy times along with my just overwhelming grief. And that was a little too big for me to balance it out. But I could do the small things of going to sleep on time, taking a shower. And even then, some of those things were so hard. So maybe something really small is drinking water, telling yourself you love yourself, is finding self-compassion in small ways, is doing a bit of journaling if you can, is making an appointment with a therapist or telling somebody to help you make that appointment and get you there. Whatever it takes, you can do small, little, tiny things on your way in your healing journey. And that's okay, because it's kind of like the procrastination theory of, if you just do something for 2 minutes, you commit to 2 minutes of it, you oftentimes do the whole thing you've been procrastinating on. It's just the starting that's the hard part. So start really small. That seems like something doable. That is even a goal, maybe. My goal today is to get out of bed and get dressed. I don't have to leave the house, but I'm just going to get dressed. My goal 7 days from now is to get up, get dressed, and go in the backyard, even though no one's back there, and so on. Because remember, your timeline to healing is different for everyone. It's different. And sometimes the healing takes a really long time. And that's completely okay as long as you're working towards the healing. You're not self-sabotaging. Another thing that keeps you from healing is the trap of comparison and thinking that you're behind. Comparison is just a trap on so many levels and so many ways. And in today's world, with social media highlights everyone's best moments, you often feel like you're failing, which leads to that negative self-talk that we talked about, and also leads to procrastination and makes you feel like you aren't doing it right. Why are you behind in this healing journey? Especially if it's something like you're experiencing a loss, say of a family member. Your siblings seem to have gotten over it, no problem. And you're struggling with just doing the minimal things during the day. Stop comparing yourself to them. They might just have stuffed it all down and they're moving on and it'll come back up later. You don't know what's happening with them. They may have done the work. They may have just a different timeline than you do, a different way of reacting to the things, a different way of working with their own healing. You can't know the other people's story. You can only know your story and your healing journey. Your timeline is different from everybody's. You're not behind. As long as you're working towards healing, you're on the journey. Even if you need to take a break and step off the path once in a while and do nothing and then get back on, it's your timeline and it's your feelings, and only you know what your experience is and only you know what you need. Example of this would be maybe you've thought, I should be further along in this healing thing. I should be over it by now. I should have a better future. A lot of times when something catastrophic happens to us, we start analyzing all these things in our life that we think aren't where they should be. Like, I'm not far enough along in my life. Catastrophe happens to you, and it brings up all these other beliefs, negative beliefs about yourself. I haven't progressed enough. I'm not going anywhere. I'm a loser. Da da da. It just compiles on top of the healing that you're trying to do about a situation. Try to keep it in the actual space that it is. Don't blow it up with all the other things that are wrong. I have a friend who something goes wrong. Her rants are like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and 2 years ago this happened to me, and 5 years ago this happened to me, and the universe is against me, and everybody hates me, and the universe hates me, and I'll never go anywhere, and why am I even here? And I'm not smart enough and I'm stupid. And why did I do this? That got me nowhere. And why did I go there? That was stupid of me. And it just becomes this big pile of negative self-talk that becomes overwhelming and you can't move forward. So try not to get in that spiral. Try not to think things like, everybody else is happier, more successful, more together than me. I'm so far behind, I'll never catch up. Just stop compiling all these other beliefs you have on top of the healing that you need to do around the thing that happened. That is something that you're working on over here. It doesn't mean you're not progressing in life fast enough and you won't catch up. And even if you need to take a break to heal yourself, you're not far behind. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. This is not a race. Comparing ourselves and competing with each other doesn't help us at all. So here's a healing tip as far as this goes. Ask yourself, what actually makes me happy? What actually would help me heal? What do I need to move through this? Not what society or family or social media or some book you read or something you saw says you should be doing, but what do you truly feel that you need to heal through this situation? Your journey is unique and it's unfolding perfectly in its own time. But really asking yourself these questions will be so helpful in understanding what to do. I spent years just in this space of limbo after that relationship because I didn't even realize I could ask myself these questions. I didn't even realize I could help myself. That did never even dawned on me. And I think that that's true for a lot of people. You really don't think you can help yourself. And so you don't even know what the first move is because you don't think you can help yourself on any level, even getting some support. You just really don't ask yourself those things. And you might even spend years pursuing something that had never helped you at all, when all along maybe being in nature would have helped you, maybe getting a different job, maybe taking some time off, maybe traveling, maybe deciding something different, whatever it might be. Maybe riding your bike to work is the thing. It's really about you and what you need. And again, I talk about that in my book, Reasons to Live. If you want to kind of dive into what that is and what that looks like, there's a really great section on that. And it's kind of threaded throughout the book. So we're on number 4 now. I haven't been counting down the last 3, but number 4 is expecting healing to have a deadline. Now, how many times have I said this in this podcast? Healing doesn't work on a schedule. There's no deadline for when you should be okay. If you wouldn't rush someone you love through healing, don't rush yourself. Now, oftentimes we do rush people through healing because we don't have the skill set to deal with people when they're in crisis. And so we just want everything to be okay as quickly as possible. And that's where toxic positivity comes in. We try to push the person into a space of being okay rather than supporting them in that process. And that's a downfall of our society, to just not have those skills. Instead of asking yourself, why am I not over this? Ask yourself, what is this pain still trying to teach me? Or what are some things I can do to start working on this pain? Or what is the block? Oftentimes there's a block and we all know what the block is, but we don't go there. If it's really severe trauma, sometimes it's recalling it because we block so much out. If you're going to do that kind of work, make sure you do that in a safe place for yourself, whether that's in a therapist's office or some other healer's office or with support or in a group, however it works for you. But make sure that you're safe during that space if you're going to do that kind of work. The 5th thing that keeps us from healing is procrastination and feeling stuck, of course. Feeling stuck is so common in healing. Sometimes it's because we don't know where to start. Our goals are too big and overwhelming. We need support, but we feel ashamed to ask for it. And we've probably all been there before. You don't know where to start because you've never asked yourself the questions. What do you need? Your goals are too big. If your goal is to never think of my ex-boyfriend anymore, that's the end product. What are all the steps in between? What are these mini goals in between? I'm not going to think about them for 6 hours, and then I'm not going to think about them for a day. And then when I do think about them, I'm going to replace that thought with something else. I'm going to get out there and meet other people, or whatever all the little stepping stones are along the way to those big goals. Break it down to that. That makes it much more manageable. If it's too big, it becomes too overwhelming. And if you add other things to the mix, like I was saying, if you're trying to get over a breakup, but then you also add that you don't like your job and you don't like where you live, and it becomes really overwhelming. So tease it all out and decide what all the mini goals are onto these big goals. And some of them will overlap, you'll find, and then you feel less overwhelmed because you have a game plan. Here's some healing tips. I sort of mentioned this already, the 2-minute rule. If you feel stuck, commit to just 2 minutes of the action. Instead of journaling for an hour, write a sentence. Instead of meditating for 30 minutes, just take 3 deep, slow breaths. Instead of decluttering your whole room and getting rid of stuff, clean 1 drawer. Put 1 shirt in the donation pile. Just small little steps. Don't make it be so overwhelming. It's hard to do. I always tell people to do that when working with meditation. Don't start trying to meditate for an hour. That's really, really lofty goal and hard. And I think that's why a lot of people don't continue on with meditation, because they bite off this big chunk of what they need to do. Instead, 3 short breaths. Then maybe it's 2 minutes of breathing with your eyes closed. Then maybe 3. And you're working up to a loftier goal. But just break it down into tiny things. If you need to make a list of what you need to heal, write down 2 things and then just keep going with the list. Make it manageable for yourself. This builds momentum and it tricks your brain into starting. Small steps can lead to really big changes, and small steps is so much more manageable. And the last thing that can stop you from healing is a lack of closure and holding on to resentment. Now, I'm totally guilty of this. I will have a lot of resentment because oftentimes when something happens, you feel like the person should at least apologize, but they never do. And they never give you the things that you want or you need to find closure and move forward. Instead, it just hangs out there. They never have that conversation with you. They never address it. They never say sorry. And waiting for that apology that may never come will just keep you in that same place. If we feel wronged or betrayed, it's easy to stay emotionally stuck in the past because we didn't get the closure we expected. We may keep replacing events in our minds, trying to make sense of them and wishing we could change the outcome. Boy, am I guilty of this. And I think a lot of people are. That racing mind of, if I only said this instead of that, if I only did this instead of that, if I only was this instead of that. And then that again bleeds out into all these other things in your life. Yes, exactly. Like when I was 5 and I did this and my mom got mad at me. It becomes this, again, a giant pile of all these regrets playing in our mind. And we wish we could change the outcome when we can't, when it was just this situation we were initially thinking of. You'll have to just find some peace with the fact if you didn't do exactly what you thought and you can't go back and have another conversation with the person or redo whatever was happening or talk about it with people. You have to find some place where you can be okay with the fact that the situation didn't play out as you wanted. And if you feel wrong or betrayed and you didn't get what you needed for closure, it's important to kind of think about what would give you closure that doesn't involve the thing you're not going to get. If you're not going to ever get an apology from the person, what can you do to find closure? Can you retell that story to yourself, still being accurate with the story, but in that you don't need that apology? I was recently doing this and just trying to come at the person that has rarely says sorry, rarely. So again, that's an overwhelming pile of all the times the person never said sorry. The next time they don't say sorry, that comes with all the other things they didn't say sorry about. And I was trying to flip that and be more compassionate towards the person. Like, wow, it's really a shame they can't say they're sorry because that hurts so many of their relationships. And saying sorry is so powerful. If they could step into that place and genuinely be sorry, they could heal so much in their life and be so much happier, but they just can't see that. And that's their journey. That's what they're doing. And that doesn't have to be anything about me. I can look at that and go, wow, I need to make sure I say sorry to people when I need to say sorry to people and not be so prideful or stubborn or whatever you think the cause is. And it does kind of help you to reframe that story into something that makes it easy to let go of. But it's not retelling it in a non-truth. You're keeping the facts straight, but you're coming at it from a different angle, through a different lens, in a different way. That isn't this, I'm so angry with you type thing. Try another emotion on for size to see if you can come at the situation with another emotion that isn't grief, anger, sadness. Come at it from a different place, maybe curiosity. So healing is a choice that you'll make daily. Healing isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about taking small, consistent steps towards self-compassion, self-soothing, self-worth. Oh yeah, self-soothing. I really want to talk about this because I think self-soothing is so important. Oh my gosh, so important. Learning how to self-soothe when something horrible happens and not go into this fight or flight, very scary place, doing things that aren't healthy or happy for you, to be able to self-soothe. And it might be just like we talked about, taking some deep breaths, stepping back. Maybe it's writing in a journal. Maybe it's taking a bath. Maybe it's going on a walk. Maybe it's watching cute cat videos. Whatever it is, to self soothe when you feel the emotions coming up about the situation, or if you're embroiled in the situation right now, when it's happening, to be able to self soothe is a superpower. So you might spend some time thinking, what are the things I need to self soothe? Like, what should I do when something horrible happens? What are some self soothing mechanisms? And they should be healthy ones. I'm not thinking like, oh, a self soothe, I'm going to drink 2 bottles of wine. Don't do things that are destructive to you. Do things that self-soothe you in a healthy, positive way that have lasting power. Whatever those self-soothing mechanisms are for you, have them at the ready. Think about them beforehand. Think about them now. Make a list you can go back to, because I used to just go straight to fight or flight, and then I couldn't even move. I was like deer in the headlights, frozen. I couldn't even move when a situation happened to me, and it would happen over and over and over again, and then I just kept getting over and over and over, re-traumatized by stuff. And it never dawned on me to ask the question, how can I self-soothe so I don't go there? What can I do? And it's really important to have it at the ready, because if you're a person who goes into that space of terror or, oh my gosh, and you can't move forward, you're not thinking properly at that moment. And just looking at a list can help you. Oh yeah, 3 deep breaths. You'll be surprised. Self-soothing. So important. If you take one thing away from this episode, let it be this. You're not behind. You're not broken. You are worthy of healing, happiness, and love. And you have the power to heal yourself. You know what you need. Let what you need be known. You are smart enough, brave enough, strong enough, capable enough to heal these wounds. You are. No matter where you are on the journey, you are worthy of healing, peace, and joy. And maybe that's all you say to yourself for the first month of the situation. I am worthy of healing, joy, and love. Affirmations can be really powerful through a situation like this, especially if you have that fight or flight. It's part of self-soothing. I used affirmations super successfully during a really hard time in my life. I just had them on a Post-it in various places, in the car, at my desk, in the bathroom, hidden. It was hidden. And when I felt myself starting to just hyperventilate and freak out, I would say the affirmations to myself while I took some deep breaths. And it really retrained my brain in a very easy way. But with affirmations, you have to be consistent. You have to use them often till that becomes your way of thinking. So if this episode resonated with you, please share it with somebody who might need it, which is probably everyone, because we all go through challenging times. If you want more healing tools, check out my book, Reasons to Live. The link is in the description. We talk a lot about suicide in that book, but it's also really just making it through dark times, learning how to love yourself, how to self-soothe, how to be kind to yourself, how to realize your connections in the world, and how to help others do the same. There's also a big resource in the back, which isn't just all suicide resources. There's also resources in there that can help you with other aspects of going through dark times. So check it out, my friends, and let me know what your healing roadblocks are that you faced and what you did. If you're watching this where you can comment, please comment. That always helps others on their healing journeys. And I certainly don't have all the answers. We all collectively have the answers, because this is a community where we've all chosen to help each other. You can also DM me on Instagram, and you can schedule time with me, whatever you need to do. But let us know what your roadblocks are, how you faced them, what you did, what was successful. It would really be helpful to the rest of us watching this video or listening to this podcast. And if you DM them to me, we can have a conversation. And if it works for you, I can put them somewhere where other folks can see them too. So until next time, my friends, know that I love you and I support you, and be kind to yourself. You deserve kindness and love. You do. And you'll get through this. You're a strong, powerful, amazing person. You'll get through this. So take good care, my friends.